Tonight, former President John Mahama stands his ground, refusing to promise teacher unions an increase in salary and improvement in working conditions if he's elected president, as he declares he cannot share what has not been created, as teachers pile pressure on him to commit.
I cannot promise everybody that we're going to increase your salaries and all that. I don't want to be like those dishonest people who came and promised you heaven. You can't share what you've not created.
We'll hear from the unions tonight. And Top Stories are always brought to you by Vodafone. Now, teachers across the country, they've been pressing former President John Mahama on his nationwide tour, demanding that he commits to increase his salaries and improve their working conditions if he's elected president in the December polls. Well, tonight, the former president is standing his ground, refusing to make that commitment. Addressing calls during his Building Ghana tour in Tamale, John Mahama says it will be dishonest on his part to make promises he cannot keep.
Pre-tertiary teachers, she talked about conditions of service. I've said it, that the economy is in a big mess, and so I cannot promise everybody that we're going to increase your salaries and all that. I don't want to be like those dishonest people who came and promised you heaven and said they will build factories in every district, they will build dams in every village, they will give every constituency $1 million a year. I'm not that kind of person. And so I cannot promise you that I'm coming to increase your salaries, but we've taken note of the difficulties that pre-tertiary teachers are going through.
Let me bring in Nana Yaojima. He's been traveling with the former president's team. Nana, I get the sense that this is one demand that he's had to confront almost everywhere he's been.
Exactly, Evans. Wherever we've been so far, this question has come up almost everywhere. Anytime he meets people from organized labor and other labor unions, these are questions that frequently comes up. They continue to ask about their welfare and also complain to him about how impoverished they've become, especially with the current economic challenges. So these are questions that have been repeated everywhere the former president and flag bearer of the NDEC has been.
And it's within the same context that we had him a few weeks back talking about a honeymoon, that he needed a bit of a honeymoon to fix things. Now, did he, though, offer solutions to the teachers? Because they wanted to hear something from him. They wanted some form of commitment.
Now, what he is saying is that when he is elected as president, he will ensure that he open up the books of the country for all to see what we have there and call all on board to give or offer some solution. And there will be some kind of jojo among the various parties to find the way forward for the present situation of the country. But he continuously or repeatedly says the economy is in a mess, and the clear picture will be given when he assumes power. That is when he wants to have an open forum with all of the labor unions and all interested parties, open up the books and for all to know what exactly is happening when it comes to the country's economy.
And I've suggested some of the solutions. And one is that we will help you with accommodation in the schools so that more teachers can stay in school. One of the reasons a lot of teachers do not want to go on posting to certain areas is because they cannot find accommodation. There have been some rural areas where nobody rents a house or a room, and so you have to stay in town and commute to school every day. And the cost of transport will eat up all your salary. So we've spoken with all your colleagues, all the regions we've gone, we've had teachers, talking about the challenges. But when we come into office, we'll open the books will open the economy for everybody to see what is there. You can only share what you've created. And so when we all see the books, then we will create and then we can share. You can't share when you've not created.
I want to bring in the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kabon, who joins us on the line right now. Mr. Kabon, what's your response to John Mahama here? He's been honest. He says, I can't promise anything. The teachers have been battering him, pressing him to commit to improve working conditions, increase salaries if elected. He says, I can't do so now because the economy is so bad. I want to open the books up if I win, and then we can make a decision at a time. Your response?
Well, let me first congratulate those teachers for identifying the issues and the challenges that is bedeviling us in Ghana education or British. And I'm also happy the former president identified one major issue, that is accommodation for teachers. Accommodation is in two folds. The accommodation that you need to have while you are working, and the accommodation which should be your primary place of abode. At least, a teacher would work for about 35 years. And if we have a system in the school where there could be accommodation to house the teacher during his or her working year, he will be able to organize himself and save and get his permanent place of abode. And one thing about accommodation on campus is that it contributes largely to school discipline. Because once there are presence of teachers in the school, students comport themselves. So I think the right conversation is being started, and I want the conversation to continue. Of course, it is also true that the provision of needs and wants is a factor of presence of what? Economic facilities and abilities. That is, the economic health of the country reflects on what you get or what you have. One thing politicians have not been doing is they don't open the books to the people. And in opening the books, we have to be honest and sincere and let the people know that this is what is coming in. This is what we are using it for. And this is what you can get. So that what comes in will not be taken advantage of by the politician against the needs and wants of the people. So I think that both the former president and the teachers have had a very positive conversation.
However, you're not getting him to commit to general improvement in working conditions, to increasing salaries. As a union leader, happy with that?
No. Come again.
As a union leader, happy with a man who possibly could become president next year say, I cannot commit to improve your working conditions next year or increase your salaries?
For us workers, we will demand from government, whichever government is in power, what the workers need to get to have. And sometimes the demand of workers is a mere reflection of what they in power are getting. So for that demand, no one will take it away from us. Of course, when we go for negotiation, we look at the realities of the economy and we negotiate with government, but then the worker also needs to survive and we cannot sacrifice that.
And I know, going into an election while the parties draft their manifestos, there is this procedure and process where the teachers unions, you want to make an input. You want to get an influence the process so that you can have your stake in there and have a say. Because as you know, manifestos have become governing documents.
Yes.
But then you have a politician who, yes, he's being honest, but he's saying, I can't commit that. You cannot, hold him to anything until he comes to the power. Is that something that your group is willing to
but
play by?
We also have to be very mindful of frivolous promises. I mean, in the last election from 2016, you saw the litany of promises that were made to us as a people. Promises upon promises. People promise the moon and the sky and the heavens. So I think the Ghanaian is gone beyond just coming to stand before him or her and then you just make promise. For example, when you give me promises that you are going to give me accommodation for free, if I believe that, I should be stupid to believe in that. So again, I think that we also have to be mindful of the promises galore culture that is gradually creeping into our system. So for me, and then let me also say that the leadership of the unions have prepared a document that we are going to share with the political parties, and we'll be engaging the political parties on the document that we have prepared. I'm saying the document will be ready by next week. I'll send you a copy so that we will see which political party will be open to incorporate into its manifesto some of the suggestions that we have made. I think let us now have a more intellectual discussion or discourse on what a politician can give and what the people expect.
Is it fair to assume that this document will bother on improving the welfare of the teacher?
Absolutely, welfare conditions of service and all that.
But if you take the John Mahama principle, if you take the John Mahama principle to commit to improve that welfare, you first need to understand the real state of the economy, which he says he will want to win first.
We will suggest to the political parties how to be able to save money and protect the revenue of the state to provide for us our needs and wants.
Stay with me. Let me bring in Dr. Clement Apawu. He's a deputy ranking on the Education Committee in Parliament. He is a prominent mouthpiece for the opposition National Democratic Congress on matters of education. Joins us now. Mr. Apawu, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. Isn't it a risky move? As we know, we become accustomed to politicians making commitments and then being held accountable when they get into power to fulfill those commitments. One of the biggest constituencies you will have to appease is the constituency of teachers. And yet you have the former president, who's been president before, say he can't commit. Isn't that risky? You risk losing votes there.
Well, let me say good evening to you and to our cherished listeners, and to extend felicitations to my senior brother, Angel, on the other side of the line. The short answer to your question is no. I don't believe that the teaching fraternity would punish John Mahama for being honest and sincere. Indeed, it would have been rather unacceptable on the part of John Dramani Mahama to promise that he would improve the conditions of service of teachers when he does not know what to expect as far as the nation's finances are concerned.
But is that really true, though? I mean, because it's pretty transparent now. We are on an IMF program. The books are fairly known. The IMF is very regular with publishing where we are and how our economy is performing. You should know that by now.
Well, and that is the reason why he made the statement he made. Yes, we know what the IMF has said. We have seen the documentation. But even you and I would agree that even within that context, the government is not being as transparent as it is. I can even give you a quick example. This government, through its representatives, including the president, the vice president, and the minister for education, have time without number told us that there is nothing wrong with the implementation of the Free Senior High School and that they would not review it. But guess what? They have told the IMF that they are going to review, and not just reviewing, they are going to review the Free Senior High School program and enhance it. So we cannot take them on face value. And quite clearly,
I think the prudent thing to do is what John Dramani Mahama has said. Remember that he is not saying that he is averse to the challenges that teachers face. Neither is he oblivious to their conditions of service. What he has said is that when he gets the opportunity to become the president, he would open up the books. He would invite all stakeholders. Let's all take a look to see what is in the national office. Then, based on what is available, we can collectively decide whether there is sufficient to augment the current conditions of service or not. And if it is not sufficient, we would all work together to create the needed wealth so that we can collectively improve the conditions of service for teachers and indeed other workers in Ghana. And I think that is the most honest and prudent thing to do.
Well, but would he have the time to do that? And remember that in 2025, as we've heard Angel Kabonu intimate, they will still make their demands. They expect an improvement in your conditions, and that will be benchmarked against what the politicians themselves are enjoying at that time.
Well, you see, there are collective agreements between the employer and the employee. And I don't think John Mahama is going to be somebody who will try to temper with the already accepted and agreed conditions of service as far as teachers are concerned. If you want my personal opinion, he has always prioritized the educational sector, and Angel Kabonu would even agree with me that in the run-up to the 2020 election, John Mahama paid a courtesy call on NAGRAT, and I remember being a part of that delegation to hear from them directly some of the issues, and indeed some of those conversations led to the framing of our manifesto promises as far as education is concerned and teachers in particular are concerned. And I know such an engagement would ensue even before, we get to the date for an election. So all of these matters, as Angel himself is indicating, will be up. And I am looking forward to the document that he's speaking about. And clearly, whatever is going to be in that document would be factored in as far as how to create the needed space, how to mobilize the needed revenue so that the conditions of service as far as teachers are concerned would be met. I am particularly elated that Angel Kabonu is making references to how we can look at dealing with what is going on that is helping to dissipate public resources so as to be able to bring a lot more into public coffers, which would then make it easier for all of us to reward teachers handsomely for the sacrifices that they continue to make as far as training the future of this nation is concerned. And there are many ways to do that.
And I know
we can cut on the number of staffers at the presidency, where today we have in excess of 1,000 persons working there. We have multiple CEOs manning government agencies and other institutions. And of course, we would continue to speak about what is going on in our ports. So there are many ways that we can collectively tackle as a way of ensuring that there are sufficient resources in the public purse to go to critical sectors, including education.
And bottom line, you're saying that this year, when your manifesto is outdoored, we should expect that document to be light on promises to the labor unions as far as improvement in working conditions and salaries are concerned, because you don't have the full picture yet.
Well, what I'm saying is that we are going to engage with all stakeholders. We have engaged the teacher unions in the past before we wrote our manifesto, and I know we are going to do the same. And so it is going to be a collective. But for anyone to have expected John Dramani Mahama to promise that he was going to improve the conditions of service of teachers when he is not fully convinced about what is going to remain in the public coffers, clearly would have expected him to tell a lie, which I don't think he would do.
Mr. Kabonu, this document that you are putting together to share with the political parties, how uncompromising are you going to be in demanding that the parties reflect that in their manifestos? And to what extent will that influence how your members vote on December 7th?
Well, Evans, let me correct you and say that you said something when you were talking to Clement Park that Ghanaians are used to promises. I think it is rather the reverse, that empty promises made by politicians in the past that did not yield or did not amount to anything is rather made those politicians very unpopular in this country. Teachers are an intellectual group of people who rather appreciate thoughtful, well-studied, well-researched promises that are attainable, not frivolous promises just to win election. And the people of this country should punish politicians who come about and make empty and frivolous promises that even a class 1 child knows that they cannot keep to. So I think, and then of course, Evans, you as a media man, you should lead that crusade. That a politician should not just look. There was an election in a secondary school, and the contestant for the school prefect came and told the students that he will make, when he becomes school prefect, he will make sure that there is a sliding roof over the school. I get it. I mean, of course, this is as stupid as it can be, but he made it, and then he thinks that promises make leadership. So rather, Ghanaians should expect thoughtful, well-researched, attainable promises, not empty and frivolous promises.
And I guess this will reflect in your document you are presenting before the
Absolutely.
parties.
For example, we cannot present any document to a political party asking the political party that within 4 years put up houses for every teacher. We cannot do that because we know that the economy cannot support that.
And to what extent will that document influence how your members vote?
Oh, we finished with the document. Like I said, next week we'll be sharing the document with even the media and the public, and then we will engage the political parties. We are going to write a letter to the political parties that we are now ready. And I'm talking about not only NAGRA, but all the teacher unions. We'll sit with the political parties and have discussions with them on our views on education and how to make education a better organ.
Andrew Kabonu, thank you very much. And that's the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Earlier, you heard Clement Apawu, Dr. Clement Apawu. He's a deputy ranking member on the Education Committee, speaks for the NDC on issues relating to the sector. I want to bring in Dr. Asa Santina. He's a senior political scientist, a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Joins us right now. Dog, so you have a politician, a former president, very astute, very experienced, on a campaign trail, saying, I cannot make a promise. And the teachers are constantly asking him, we need you to commit. He says, I will not commit because I don't know what I'm going to meet in 2025. Is that approach, is the strategy one that would win him votes or cost him votes?